I will take you out from among the nations, and gather you out of all countries, and will bring you into your own land. Then shall I sprinkle water upon you, and ye shall be clean. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes. And ye shall keep my commandments and do them. And ye shall dwell in the land which I gave to your fathers. And ye shall be my people, and I will be your God.
Hello, friends. We want to share with you at this time some of the good things of the Bible, particularly some of its prophecies relating to our time and the wonderful manner in which they are being fulfilled. With me to join in this presentation is Mr. Edward Fay, Bible scholar and international lecturer, and Mr. Norman Woodworth, associate editor of the Dawn magazine.
And Mr. Russell Pollock, our moderator.
Thank you. Later, we will have the prophet Daniel and the prophet Ezekiel tell us some of the prophecies which the Lord gave to them to record. Mr. Woodworth, would you like to give us some of the background of these prophets? This, I think, may help us to understand their message a little better.
Well, Daniel was one of the Hebrews who was taken captive to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. He was a young man at the time. He found favor with the king and was exalted to be what we would call today the prime minister. However, he was true to the God of Israel and was used greatly by him as a prophet.
And Ezekiel, how does he enter into the picture?
Well, Ezekiel was also a captive Hebrew in Babylon, taken there before the general captivity began. In fact, this seems also to have been true of Daniel. Ezekiel did his prophesying in Babylon, and I think we can be reasonably sure that he and Daniel would, when opportunity permitted, get together to discuss the things pertaining to their God, things which were of mutual interest to them.
That seems reasonable. Ed, briefly, what were some of Daniel's prophecies?
Well, the first one of record is found in the 2nd chapter of his book. It was given in connection with his interpretation of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream, in which he saw a human-like image with a head of gold, breast and arms of silver, thighs of brass, legs of iron, and feet and toes of iron and clay mixed. In this dream, the king saw a stone cut out of the mountain without hands. The stone smote the image on its feet, causing it to fall to the ground. It was ground to powder, and the wind blew it away.
What was Daniel's interpretation of this unusual dream?
Well, Daniel explained that the gold, the silver, the brass, and the iron of the image represented 4 kingdoms or empires, beginning with Babylon, followed by Medo-Persia and Greece, and the last being Rome. The feet, and particularly the toes of the image, foreshadowed the division of the Roman Empire, and some of these divisions continue to exist even to our day. That stone that smote the image on its feet, Daniel explained, foreshadowed the kingdom of God, which in these last days would destroy the Gentile rulership in the earth and then become a worldwide government.
And it is interesting to note that Daniel's prophecy concerning the 4 great empires of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome was accurately fulfilled. So was his prophecy concerning the divisions of the Roman Empire. That stone which smote the image on its feet grew until it became a great mountain which filled the whole earth. And we can be sure that this part of the prophecy will also be fulfilled. Christ's kingdom will fill the earth, and we are even now living in the time when we can expect a speedy fulfillment of this part of Daniel's prophecy.
Well, I can see that the historical accuracy with which this prophecy of Daniel's has been fulfilled should give us confidence in his other prophecies. And what about Ezekiel?
Well, Russell, the book of Ezekiel contains many prophecies of interest to us at the present time. He prophesied at length concerning the return of the Jews to Palestine in these latter days and their reestablishment of the land of promise. The fact that we see these prophecies being fulfilled at the same time that Daniel's prophecy is also reaching a fulfillment is additional proof that both these prophets were used by the Lord to foretell events in the outworking of his plan.
That certainly seems to be true. And I suggest that we now listen to Daniel and Ezekiel as they discuss points of mutual interest as captive Hebrews in the land of the Chaldeans, or Babylon.
Yes, Daniel, I was made happy to learn that you had found favor with the king Nebuchadnezzar, that you had been given such a high position of trust in his kingdom. It seems to me that now you're in a position to do much for our people in their unhappy lot as captives in a strange land.
That is true, Ezekiel. But there's nothing I can do about shortening the period of their exile. As a servant of God and a prophet, you well know that once God makes a decree, it must stand. And through the prophet Jeremiah, as you doubtless know, the Lord made it clear that this punishment upon his people for their sins was to last for 70 years.
I know. It is indeed a sore punishment. Sometimes I sit down with a group of my Hebrew friends and we weep together. We remember Zion and Jerusalem. However, the Lord still owns us as his people. And in the prophecies he has given to me to record, I can see that great things lie ahead for our nation.
Oh, I have no doubt about that, Ezekiel. In the prophecy which the Lord gave to me, in connection with Nebuchadnezzar's dream, there is the assurance that he is indeed to establish a worldwide government in the hands of the promised Messiah, even as Isaiah foretold. However, Ezekiel, to me there seems to be much that is vague about these prophecies and difficult to understand. Have you found that to be true?
Yes, I have, Daniel. In one of the prophecies the Lord gave to me, for example, there is the assurance that our people will be gathered back to their own land, from all the lands whither the Lord had driven them. I'm not sure, but it seems to me this implies that although we will be released from our captivity here in Babylon, there's to be another uprooting from our land, the scattering of our people among all the nations of the earth. Doesn't it seem that way to you, Daniel?
That could very well be. But Ezekiel, I'm interested. Tell me more about that.
Well, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying that he would scatter our people among the Gentiles, and that they would be dispersed among the nations. The Lord said that he would do this because of the sins of our people. I'll tell you, Daniel, the outlook for our people is not good.
Except, as you have said, the Lord also directed you to prophesy that he would gather us from all the nations whither he had scattered us, and would again plant us in our own land.
Yes, of course. And how very clear the Lord has made that fact. He had me write, I will take you from among the nations and gather you out of all countries, and will bring you into your own land. Then shall I sprinkle water upon you, and you shall be clean. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes. And ye shall keep my commandments and do them. And ye shall dwell in the land which I gave to your fathers. And ye shall be my people, and I will be your God.
That indeed is a most gracious reassurance of Jehovah's everlasting love for his people. I recall now that Jeremiah recorded a similar prophecy given to him by the Lord. He wrote, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be said, The Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and from all the lands whither he hath driven them. And I will bring them again into their land, that I gave unto their fathers.
And I believe Jeremiah also prophesied that the Lord would send hunters and fishers among our people to make sure that they did return to the land of promise.
Yes, he did. And that part of his prophecy I find difficult to understand.
Well, from what Daniel just said, it seems that the prophets of old did not clearly understand all the things about which they wrote. Mr. Woodworth, did you get that impression as you listened?
I did, and besides, Russell, in the New Testament, we are informed that they did not understand much of what they wrote. Generally speaking, it is the fulfillment of the Bible's prophecies which enable the student to have a clearer understanding of them. There's no doubt that we are now living in the time when the prophecies pertaining to Israel's return to the Promised Land are in course of fulfillment.
I know that many students of prophecy take that view, and certainly what we have witnessed in connection with developments in Palestine in our day seems to bear that out. If this is true, then it seems to me that we should be able to see something in the experiences of the Jewish people referred to in Jeremiah's prophecy as fishers and hunters, which the Lord would send among his people. Daniel couldn't understand this part of the prophecy. Can we today? Ed, do you have a comment for us on this point?
Well, as we know, it was the First World War that led to the opening up of Palestine to the Jews. But long before that, the Zionist movement, founded by Theodor Herzl, began calling attention to the Jews, the fact that they should take an interest in Palestine and settle there if possible. This effort has continued since. We might possibly think of this as one of the fishing methods which the Lord used to induce his people to return to the Promised Land. But not many paid serious attention to these inducements, or shall we say, the bait, thus held out to them. Then there came the bitter persecutions of the Jews during the Hitler regime. Millions of them were murdered. But as a result of this, the European Jews generally, who were still alive, felt that the only thing was to go to Palestine and take part in the rebuilding of that land. I think we might look upon this as part of the fulfillment of the prophecies concerning the hunters, which would, as it were, drive the Israelites back to their promised land.
That is very interesting to me. Mr. Woodworth, do you also feel that the prophecies of the Old Testament pertaining to the return of the Jewish people to their promised land are now being fulfilled?
I don't think there can be any doubt about this. For centuries, much of the land of Israel was a desert waste, as shown here by this section of the Negev desert. Now a new day is dawning in Israel. Its cities and towns are bustling communities of activity. Construction of homes and other buildings is carried on through the use of modern equipment. Haifa is Israel's largest seaport city, and daily becoming more modern. From here, Israeli ships sail to all parts of the world. Much manufacturing is also now being done in Israel. Here we see the making of huge water pipes. There's also much mechanized farming in Israel. And also farming without the benefit of machines. as these Israelis from all parts of the world work together for the development of the land. Modern schools are now in effective operation in the ancient Holy Land. In these schools, youth from all nations are being educated in preparation for their future role in the nation's affairs. The ancient custom of bringing the first fruits of harvest as an offering to the Lord is now in vogue in modern Israel, and apparently resulting in much joy.
Yes, that is convincing. Surely we are living in a wonderful time in the world's history, a time without doubt when the hand of God is manifest in the affairs of men and when the prophecies of His Word are being fulfilled. And now I think it might be well to get back to Daniel and Ezekiel as they discuss further the prophecies which the Lord gave through them.
Yes, Ezekiel. The ways of Jehovah are often shrouded in mystery. We have the assurance, of course, that nothing can interfere with the outworking of His purposes. However, just take, for example, one of Jeremiah's prophecies. Now, through him, the Lord said, "I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it."
That prophecy, it seems to me, is simply reaffirming those which the Lord gave to me.
True enough. But to this prophecy the Lord added, "We have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace." Now, one would think that at the time our people were being restored to their land, there would be much joy and that peace would be assured to them. But just the opposite to this is what Jeremiah seems to have foretold.
I see what you mean. Now, I'll admit it is hard to understand. But you know, the Lord gave me a prophecy that could imply the same thing. In one of my prophecies, the thought is given that after our people are restored to the land, and dwelling there prosperously, aggressor hordes would come against them from the north and from other places. True, the prophecy gives assurance that the Lord will protect our people in this time of crisis. But still, I can see that much fear will be engendered in the hearts of our people.
I constantly marvel at prophecy. Would you say, Ed, that there is anything in Israel's situation today that might throw some light on Ezekiel's prophecy concerning the troublous times for Israel in connection with the reestablishment of this people in their land of promise?
Well, I think so. As a matter of fact, the Israelites have had no real peace and security during the entire period since they have been returning to their land and reclaiming it for a nation. There has been one crisis after another. And we know that now they're surrounded by enemies whose determination is to destroy them as a people and a nation and drive them out of their land.
That is true. Mr. Woodworth, Ezekiel told Daniel that in one of his prophecies, mention is made of aggressor hordes that would come against this reestablished people from the north. Would you care to comment on that point?
Well, as I said before, the details of prophecy can seldom be understood until they are fulfilled. As of now, however, students of prophecy feel that the north referred to could be the communist countries north of Israel, and that someday an attack will be spearheaded by these in an attempt to take over the ancient land of Palestine. We can see the possibility of something like this developing, but it is best not to attempt to be prophets ourselves, but simply to wait until the actual events determine just what the Bible really does mean.
That, I think, is a reasonable and proper attitude. And now, Let us get back again to Daniel and Ezekiel as they continue to discuss their respective prophecies.
Just as you say, Daniel, many of the Lord's prophecies which we are asked to record are indeed difficult to understand. Of course, when the Lord informs us that he will scatter our people and make them captives among all nations, and then promises to restore them to their own land, that is understandable. But in one of the prophecies which the Lord gave to me with respect to the Israelites, while he speaks of releasing them from their captivity, he also states that at the same time he will release the people of Sodom from their captivity.
That is strange. Why, Ezekiel, the Sodomites were all destroyed hundreds of years ago, in the days of our father Abraham. How could they be released from captivity?
That's the point. I thought you might have a suggestion as to what the Lord means by releasing the Sodomites from their captivity.
Well, I do remember that in the prophecy of Jeremiah, similar language is used with respect to other heathen nations which are either already destroyed or their destruction is foretold. It seems that the Lord considers all these to be in captivity of some sort.
Daniel, I have an idea. Do you suppose God looks upon these as being in captivity to death?
What then would their release from captivity mean?
Only one thing, Daniel, which is release from death. Obviously, it is God's purpose to restore all these people to life when God's due time comes. And that, of course, includes our own people.
Ezekiel, without doubt, you have arrived at the proper conclusion. We should have thought of that before. For after all, Jehovah has given us assurance that he will restore the dead to life. Our great leader and lawgiver, Moses, taught us that. I remember one of his beautiful prayers, which he recorded. Addressing our God, Moses said, "Thou turnest man to destruction, but sayest, Return ye, children of men."
Yes. And the prophet Job said that he expected the Lord would call him forth from death. Truly the ways of God are wonderful and far-reaching. It's not good to think that our people, after returning to our land from this present captivity in Babylon, will again be driven out of their land and scattered among all nations. But we do have the assurance that they will be gathered from this worldwide captivity and restored to the land, never again to be disturbed.
Ah, yes. And even more important than that, Ezekiel, we now know that our people, and the Gentiles as well, will be released from their captivity and death. I remember that in Isaiah's prophecy, he speaks of Jacob returning to be among his people again, that his face will not become pale with old age.
And I am sure that must be the time when, as the prophet Jeremiah wrote, and as mentioned in one of my prophecies, the Lord will give our people a heart of flesh, and will put his spirit within them. Jeremiah wrote that the Lord will make a new covenant with our people, that they shall all know him from the least even unto the greatest.
Ezekiel, there's little likelihood that either of us will live long enough to return to Jerusalem from our captivity here at Babylon. But we can both look forward to the time when we will be awakened from our captivity and sleep of death. Ah, it will be wonderful to see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all of our people in that happy day of the Lord.
Well, Daniel and Ezekiel did reach some startling conclusions as they pondered the meaning of the prophecies. Ed, do you think that they were justified in the assumption that they were to be raised from the dead in the Lord's due time?
Russell, that was not an assumption. It was a correct conclusion. The hope of the resurrection of the dead is firmly based upon the Word of God. This feature of God's plan for his human creatures is set forth both in the Old and New Testaments. The word resurrection is not used in the Old Testament, but the idea is set forth in various other ways. As Daniel and Ezekiel decided, those in death are likened to prisoners, and these prisoners of death are to be released according to God's promises. later in Daniel's experience, the Lord told him that those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake.
And in the New Testament, Russell, it is revealed that the resurrection of the dead is to come as the logical result of the death and resurrection of Jesus, the world's Redeemer. Paul wrote that as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall all be made alive. Besides, the hope of the resurrection is definitely associated with the restoration of Israel at this end of the age. Speaking of their restoration, Paul wrote, "What shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead?"
Very good. Ed, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, only that we're living in a most wonderful time of human experience. From the standpoint of human wisdom, there is much uncertainty and fear in the world. But the Bible assures us that a new day is about to dawn, the Lord's day, when through the agencies of the kingdom of Christ and in fulfillment of the promises of God, all the families of the earth are to be blessed with peace and the opportunity to enjoy health and everlasting life. What more could we ask?
Certainly it does seem that the Lord has the situation well in hand. And friends, this fact is brought out clearly in the public service book entitled The Future of Israel and the World. May I ask, do you know that through the prophets of Israel we have recorded the origin, progress, and final destiny of the entire human race? An intelligent witness to the gradual outworking of a wonderful purpose in human affairs. Many of these prophecies are presented in the little book, The Future of Israel and the World. While there is much trouble ahead for both Israel and the world, the Bible assures us that neither Israel nor the world will be destroyed in a nuclear war. Instead of this, Israel's dead, as well as the dead of all mankind, will be restored to life in Messiah's kingdom now near. Study these facts for yourself as they are presented in the little book, The Future of Israel and the World.
To view the booklet online, visit www.dawnbible.com, or to receive a hard copy of the booklet by mail, send an email to dawnbiblerequest@gmail.com. Include your name and postal mailing address and ask for the booklet by name. The name of the booklet for this program is The Future of Israel and the World. The booklet will be mailed to you free and without obligation. And now, goodbye, and may God bless you.